Pam, thank you so much for joining.
Thank
Um,
you for the invitation, Venkatesh.
no, you've been one of the great supporters of shared mobility forever. You also had your own venture that you've built, you've packaged, and you've exited from it. In terms of like an impact kind of story, I think that's one of the things that we would love to know from you.
Thank you again for inviting me. I hope that I have something valuable for the listeners and for people that are starting up. I'm Pam Cooley. I am currently the executive director of the Global Carsharing Association, called the CSA Car Sharing Association, carsharing.org. And I'm kind of like the car share ambassador. I love to go around and talking about car sharing in relation to different stakeholders and what they need to consider when they're involved in car sharing. So that's what I'm doing currently. The association is an industry association where we support car sharing in the shared mobility environment in the ecosystem that we have. And so we support CSOs, but we also are in the context of the shared mobility ecosystem. So yeah, people can take a look on carsharing.org and join. As I always say, that if you are involved with car sharing, if you join the car sharing association and grow car sharing, then everybody benefits. So that's how I that's how I look at it. But my own origin story is that I used to live in Vancouver, and now I live in a place called Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's on the very east coast of Canada, and it's a small province. It's about just over a million people, but the main city is called Halifax, or HRM, Halifax Regional Municipality. And we have about 350,000, 360,000 in that city. It's our largest city. But then in that city, we have a peninsula, and it's surrounded by water. And you can see it if you look on a map. It's actually quite gorgeous. And when I got home in 2008, I lived in Vancouver for 25 years. And then I came home to look after my mom and dad. And when we got here, there wasn't any car sharing. And so I thought, because we had like 3 in Vancouver at the time. And I'm like, what? This is supposed to be like a major city. And so I just decided to start one. And I'm as a member of car sharing, but I had no idea. But my normal work is I'm as a facilitator, professional facilitator, and I get people together around the table to get things done. This is what I do, and it's my specialty. And so I thought, well, I'll just start one. So I did. And I got a partner, and we started and I did a business plan. Now, my business plan, again, you need a business plan. You need to know the numbers. Okay, this is the first thing. If you're starting a car share, or you're starting any business, you need to know the numbers. And so I did the numbers, and I got loans, very small interest loans. With Nova Scotia has this program where I could get a small interest loan. And I started with 9 cars. And it was such a lesson. I'll tell you some of the challenges that I came across. In my naivete, I just kept on going. So the challenges were that nobody knew what it was. Like in Halifax, Nova Scotia, I always say that we're so far behind, we're ahead, because we could jump all of the other mistakes that we've made in shared mobility. And so I started people didn't even know what it was. So I had to go around looking at pounding the pavement, basically. And I did some really interesting things. I went down to the local market, which is a very, very big local market. And I got a stall, which was outside, and put my car out there and got people to like come to the car and talk about what this was. You can save money, and, all of the reasons why we have car sharing. And then I would give them the key fob, because at that time, the technology, which is another challenge, by the way, they got into the car, and I'd give them, they'd open the car with the key fob, and then they'd get in the car, and then they'd like, oh, this is just a normal car. And I'm like, yeah. It's just a normal car. Like that's how basic it was at the time. Nobody knew what it was. And so when we started, this is another thing, what we did is we started and we called our first 100 members founders, right? Because we wanted them to become, you know, ambassadors for this. And so we called them founders, and they had like 1 to 100, the first number, like the first member numbers. And some people still actually say, you know, I was this number. Right. So, you know, there was just different things. And if you're starting new and nobody knows what it is, then it really does take some innovation. The other thing that I did was I thought about all the stakeholders that could use car sharing. At that time, we didn't have a city that gave us parking. Developers were one of my major stakeholders. I just felt, okay, I got to talk to developers. And I had a champion in the city too. So if you find a champion in the city that's really open to ideas, this was a major CEO, and I asked him for some help. You know, I went into his boardroom and I explained to him what I was doing, and within 15 minutes he says, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need to get in front of people." So these are some of the things that that I did. I got free parking in different private companies and things like that in order to be able to have parking spots, because that's your major challenge is parking.
So definitely city and the policy helped.
Well, see, they didn't have any policy. I actually got, and this is the other thing, if you're like starting from scratch and nobody knows what it is, I got some stakeholders together, like nonprofit organizations, environmental companies, and commercial companies, and I got them together. And we went to the city and we talked about car sharing and bike sharing and everything. This was, you know, this was about 10 years ago. So then we instigated the city to get organized around an integrated mobility plan, which is still in place, but we're the ones that took it to them and said, look, you need to come up to the 21st century and do these sorts of things. So it was a lot of advocacy. Luckily, my background was in advocacy, and my background was organizing community, you know, events and things like that. So I took advantage of that. The other challenge, Venkatesh, was technology. And at the time, technology, you know, the reservation system, the, you know, technology in the cars, all of those sorts of things I knew nothing about. And so I wanted to just kind of look at some of the other challenges in relation to the car sharing industry. So when I thought I knew what I was doing, but when I knew that I didn't know what I was doing, this was like 3 years in. So I got to a point where the car sharing, and this is really true confessions, right? The car sharing industry, it was growing. People were joining and we were buying, and, you know, but my money was running out because I didn't have the right formula. And so you have to really look at what works in this, and it's a long-term game. It's not going to be a money maker right away. And that's the problem with car sharing. There's some, you know, it talks about this, you know, so many millions of dollars that one can make from car sharing, and it's probably true, but you have to take the time in order to get the right formula. And this is what I find is a really difficult situation right now, because, you know, big companies come in because they think that there's this big opportunity. They go, but they don't do the work that it's necessary with the cities and that sort of thing in order to have a partnership. They cause a lot of chaos, particularly around parking. And then because they didn't make enough money, they leave. But they don't get the problem car sharing industry does. And so then we get the problem of trying to convince cities. And so this is a big problem. It's a big challenge for the car sharing industry right now. We need to come together on that to figure out and tell cities what actually works and what doesn't, and how to make the environment such that car sharing was actually can be viable in your city. And partnerships is definitely one of those things.
Right. So once you laid down all that groundwork, you're off, you're getting members, they're using it, they're loving it, and then what's happening? So you're facing a cash crunch in terms of operations, I'm guessing. And so where's that decision going? How many years? Then so now
So
you're starting to think about like what's the
I
next
needed
step,
help. I needed
right?
help. I'm kind of a proud person, get it done myself kind of thing. Although I believe in the stakeholder approach, but it's still, I have to be. So basically, it came to a one of these moments, like head in hand. I had gone everywhere to try and find some money, some investment, and I was just head in hands at the end of my rope. And it was like a full on humility, right? Like it wasn't just, I didn't know what to do. It was like full on humility. Please, I need something. And as soon as I got there, this little voice came into my head, and it was ask for help from Communato. And then I have to give Communato credit, because they were the ones I actually called them and I said, and the other person that helped me a lot was Kellen McLaughlin. He was in Toronto at the time with AutoShare. So I have to give a shout out to him. Very generous people to understand that it is complicated, but if you get the right formula and you get the right people on board, it can work. And so Communato came in and said that they would help me. They helped me with some, they didn't, they were just helpful. They just came in with the right formula for me. Then, and then so the other challenge is also to get the right partner. Okay, so like if you're going into business with somebody, this is like well-known thing, but you got to have the right partner. I had the right partner for a few years, but then it became a problem, and so I got rid of that partner, and the Communato came in and became my partner. And so, and then eventually, I grew it from 9 cars to 90 in about 10 years. And then I came a point where I'm a starter and a maintainer to a point, and then I need to move on to something else. Plus, I also knew that Communato, with their experience and their knowledge and their vision, they could do more than I could. And so I decided that once I had somebody to take over my position that I knew that could do a good job here in Halifax, I told Communato, my partners at the time, because they bought out my other partner, okay, it's time to move on. And the reason why I did that was not only personal, but it was also my professional life was taking off in other areas as my consultancy, my profession as a facilitator. And also, they could do more. They were also, I was their first foray out of Quebec, and it was a very successful endeavor. So they decided that they would expand in other places. So now if you're a CarShare member, and so it went from CarShare Atlantic to Communato recently, they changed all the names. And now you can be, if you're a member of Communato, you can use it in Halifax, but you can use it across the nation. And that's what we needed. It's to expand the idea of car sharing, and the idea that you don't need to own a car, and you don't even, like, you can go from city to city and use shared mobility anywhere that you want. And that is, to me, is the bigger vision. And so I sold my shares. Now, the only thing that I would recommend to somebody who's going to do that is to save some of the shares. Like, don't sell all of them, because because now that would be my only looking back and reflecting and saying, yeah, I mean, now they're really, big in the city and also other places. And so that's what I would have done differently. But everything else, and you have to find the right partner to take over and make sure that they can do justice to the work that you've put in. Now, I'll just talk a little bit about the impact. Now, if you think about this, nobody even knew about car sharing before. Within 10, 12 years, we had thousands of people using it, and decrease. So now there's over 250 cars. Okay, so since 2008 to 2024, we have over 250 cars, and the demand is going up. It's just a matter of, like, COVID happened, we couldn't get the cars, we couldn't get the supply, blah, blah, blah. And I say we because I'm always still connected to them, but I'm no longer a formal part, but as the ED of the Car Sharing Association, then I keep tabs. So anyway, those are some of the challenges, some of the things that I would think about, and also, you know, the impact that it's having. If you think about 250 cars, for every car takes off 10 to 15 cars, that's, you know, that's a lot of car reduction in Halifax itself. And they are being asked to go other places too. So, you know, it's done. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say is that we also have a partnership with transit. So if you're a car share member, you can get a transit pass at a discount. And so it really emphasizes the fact that we're part of a transportation system, and transit being the what I call the dynamic duo, car sharing and transit, and parking policy, that all of those things, if they work together in a really good way, then car sharing has the environment to flourish with what we call light regulation. And so it's just such a low-hanging fruit for cities to, if you don't have a car sharing organization in your city, then you're losing out because you haven't got the right environment for people to get out of their personal use vehicles. There's no way that they're going to go from their cars and their families' cars to scooters or bikes. You have to have that interim access to a vehicle. And so I say to cities, like, if you have them, fantastic, partner with them, talk about new developments, talk about, you know, how you can make deals with developers to do less parking and implement car sharing, get employees to use car sharing in the city. Like, do everything that you can to partner with car sharing, because it's your lowest hanging fruit. And if you don't have one, then you need to create the environment in order to encourage a car sharing organization to come and partner with you as part of that missing link to get people out of their personal use vehicles. But for the entrepreneur, it's vice versa. You have to go and develop relationships with the cities and those who are making decisions, politicians, getting them in your cars and getting them to use them. And it's hard work, but it's definitely worth it. And I would encourage anybody thinking about doing it is to contact movmi or other organizations that can help them make sure that they have the right path to make it successful. So I hope I've answered some of your questions, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about.
No, this is great. I think it's for me, even I've not heard the full A to Z of Pam Cooley origins story. So this was great for me. And yeah, when as you talk through it, I also think as shared mobility and as advocates, if only every city of 500,000 and below had a Pam Cooley in them, then somewhere I think some kind of a shared mode would be would bud. And once that is, I mean, from 9 to 90 to 250, I think it's the call that you took to to let go, and so that the impact is multifold.
It's such a low-hanging fruit too. Like, when you think about it, if you have a champion in your city who's trying to do this, for a city to partner with something like this, it's just such an opportunity, because they don't need to do very much in order to create the environment for a car sharing company or organization to flourish. And I just think that, and then also making sure that they're not fighting the car sharing organization, which has happened worldwide. It's kind of like, you're a business and why should we help you? And it's like, no, we're helping you. Yeah, yes, we have to make money because we want to grow and keep going, because we have a value that we're trying to create in your city. So it's a mention to the cities. This is like, really pay attention to this, because it is your if you have a mandate to reduce personal use vehicles and reduce traffic and get increased usage of transit organizations and other parts of the ecosystem to get people out of their cars, then this is your lowest hanging fruit. This is your gem that needs to be polished. And I just really encourage both the entrepreneur and the cities to get together and figure out how this can be advantage to the city, and get that champion just to do the work for you. It's easy.